Hey everybody, it's Cinnamon Cooney, your Art Sherpa, and today, together, we're going to paint these adorable, fluffy, fat little flock of birds sitting on a wood fence with some flowers. On the mic is my husband, John.
Hello.
As we do this live streaming class, he's going to be making sure that the camera is looking at what it's supposed to be looking at, or if it breaks, looking up new cameras, or, just general technical support.
Oh, man. Okay.
And he does sometimes read the questions and everything. So I don't know if we're set up for the live feature of art at the end of this show.
We're going to see how it goes.
We're going to see how that goes. If it's not this one, the next one. But I'm really excited about today's class. This is a 2-hoot. So it's still really focused for beginners. I focus on beginners as an art teacher, but I like to think of beginners as having stages. And so there's I haven't painted since grade school or ever at all, and I don't think I make a straight line group, which I call 1-hoot. 2-hoot is, maybe you've done the beginner acrylic painting course or you've done a few paintings. And then 3-hoot is you're not doing your own original work yet, but you're ready for more challenging things. I do actually think all of these classes work for beginners because I don't skip any part of the breaking down of the steps and techniques. So even if you were like, I'm not sure if I can paint this, but I really want to paint it, I want to encourage you to hop on in and join our little flock of birds, because the way that we're going to be able to do this, you're going to walk away learning a lot and doing so much more than you would imagine.
So much more.
So much more. So how this will go is we'll break it down into steps, and those steps will eventually be time-stamped in the video so you can find your spot again. Every color mix, every tool I use, every technique that I'm going to use, I'm going to really explain to you thoroughly so that you can follow along at home. If you're here for the live stream and you have a question, put it all in caps. For sure the moderators will have answers for you, and probably the community, but also your question might be asked live on the show. I don't have my phone today, so I won't be able to do my live shout outs like I usually do, so John will be in charge of those. Which is always a mixed bag, because if you saw the 1,000 buttons John had to sit behind, you'd be like, it's amazing these cameras ever get on at all. All right, let's go over the materials. John's going to make me small so you can see the palette. So, all right, this is the first time I've had a chance to see my own palette. We have an 11 by 14 surface. This is a stretched canvas. I have Mars Black, Cad Yellow Medium, Phthalo Green. I have Yellow Ochre, Burnt Sienna, Ultramarine Blue, Quinacridone Magenta, Cad Red Medium, and Titanium White. And I'm ready for step 1, which is going to be the fun and easy step. Step 1 is going to be paint the whole surface with your Burnt Sienna brown. Now I'm not going to use up my little brown on the palette there. I'm going to actually do this little thing that I like to do where I go wiggle, 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 and just put some paint on the canvas and smear that out, because what I want is just a little bit of a brown coat on the canvas. You don't need to do it the way I'm doing it here. This is just my lazy teacher way. I'm going to mist my surface. That's another trick. I do that. If ever you're like, oh, I want to try that, that's my secret to that. And I'm going to grab a 1 1/4 inch bright here. This is a Textura Raphael. It's 30 millimeters and 1 1/4 inch. It's the 30. So in this particular instance, they've named it after the width it is, which for brush company is a huge improvement, because usually they just name them willy-nilly. Actually, we learned how they name them. They make a line and they just name it 1 to whatever number of brushes is in it, which is why those numbers never match a size. We learned that at the retreat from an expert in art materials, and we were like, well, that's not helpful, but I see how it happened. Notice that I'm just going to get this whole thing brown. It doesn't need to be neat or tidy brown. It doesn't need to be, oh, John is hooking up a phone for me so that I can see my spammers call me during the show. No, so I can see the live chat, which I will get into in just a second. All right, you'll notice that I don't care that it's streaky. It's just the canvas is brown. By the way, sometimes you can buy canvases pre-gessoed in color, and you can buy gesso in color, so you can actually do this really easily for all of your canvases. This is really fascinating. Things are not getting better over here. There they are. Okay, it's getting really wild. I was like, I don't know where we're going with this, but I am doing this back and forth. If you're wondering, if you've never seen this before, I just want to make sure that all of my canvas just has some acrylic on it, because that helps everything stick after. Make sure you rinse your brushes out really well every time, and that you're going to wash them after every painting session thoroughly with soap and water, because that's going to help them stay with you longer. Now I'm going to set up my thing that John sent me up over here, since I do have it now, but that requires, well, so many things.
So many things. But we do. What? Oh my gosh, Heather! I just looked over here in chat and saw.
What did Heather do?
Heather she just super chatted us. Thank you for supporting us.
Thank you so much. We did lose.
Yeah.
3 mics and 2 cameras. It was some crazy number of things went down.
There was some catastrophic failures.
It was really interesting, the last show. So we really do appreciate that, and we are going. That's exactly where that's going to go. Is
new technology upgrades.
To new technology, and now I have to do the thing where I put my sound off. I'm sorry you're watching me do this, but the phone came over here and I kind of not set up for this. I was
gonna come over. I'm sorry, I didn't realize.
It's okay. It's super okay. I'm almost there.
So this is Cinnamon's getting the chat so she can see what you guys are seeing. I thought it was just going to be clever and easy and just put her phone easy within reach. Little did I know that it required logging in.
I see things now. Shirley Witt, if you're covering your canvas fully first, do you still have to gesso? Gesso is already on your canvas, Shirley. So you don't ever have to gesso. You can gesso. You pay more, actually, to buy a surface ungessoed. For me to go get a raw canvas, a raw cotton, or a raw linen canvas actually is not something that I could easily accidentally do. And you'll notice it will look like a raw fabric untreated. So the canvases that you buy are gessoed, and then you could gesso it more if you wanted a higher quality gesso, but that can make your canvas thirstier. But nothing makes acrylic paint happier than acrylic. So I like to do grounds a lot of the time, because it actually does improve the finished result of the painting and how all of your techniques function. Gesso is actually something you kind of have to cover to get to that place. It's a surface prep with a tooth on it so that the paint sticks to the surface. And on canvases, it prevents some other problems, but you would be buying raw canvases to have that problem. I'm going to dry this real quick. Look at me.
So, yeah, and it's important. You'll see that the color sheen here will shift as she's going through here. You're just seeing that some questions come in there, but as it goes from that shiny to a matte color, to a matte reflectivity, you'll know that it's getting dry, and it's important to make sure you thoroughly dry it, especially around the edges, because little gloops of paint will stick around the edges, and they'll get caught on your hand or on your brush later, and it'll be like, yep, just like that. You can even make, so make sure you don't have a moment and dry it. But otherwise, yep, dry your surface. Oh yeah, we have links in the description down below. And there was a good question about soap. Giselle asks, is there a soap you recommend for cleaning brushes? Yes, we actually make our own soap. It's the Art Sherpa brush soap, and we're between production runs because our last production run sold out and we moved and had to do a bunch of readjustments. But I do believe that, matter of fact, the day after the show, one of the things I'll do is I'll call over to our manufacturer and be like, hey, where's that soap at? So we have
the soap question.
Yeah, we may have some pretty quick.
I wish I had a Gwen and Lulabelle and Bianca, Gina, Shirley, Sue, Giselle, Muhammad, Lulabelle, and Summer Thoreau, and Catherine, and LA4 Dreams, because those are names that I recognize, and it's just always so nice to see people in the room, Okay, I want my surface completely dry, and I'm going to take my T-square. This is a ruler that allows me to draw a straight line. I find that to be incredibly helpful. Because my straight lines are very challenged. And so when I make that comment at the beginning of my videos, like, I'm using a chalk, actually I'm going to use paint. You guys are never going to be able to see that. I will use yellow ochre and a little bit of white. How's that sound? I'm going to make a line. You guys use chalk.
I could actually see that little chalk line barely.
Oh, was it? Yeah, okay. I just didn't, it didn't look like it was showing. So I was like.
It's okay. This is much easier to see.
Yeah. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to put my little fence line on here. And I'm really going to kind of think about it. I might want to give my birds even a little. This is going to be step 2, though, isn't it? Yes, it's going to be step 2.
Step 2.
I'm sorry, I thought you had the step 2 already up, babe.
No, I was just thinking, do we step 2?
I'm going to actually lower it down a little closer to the halfway point because I want more room for my bird fluff. right? So above my little light line here is going to be my sky. I'll paint out my first little test line there. I'm going to make a straight line across, and that's going to let me know where my fence is that my birds are sitting on and where the background sky is that they're going to be on. I'm just erasing. So that's what I'm doing there. That's why I don't get too stressed about any of it. And again, this is a ground, so it's not super duper important. Then the next one that I'm going to do is I'm going to come here using the T-square as well, because it does, again, give me straight lines for when I'm straight line challenged. I'm going to come here and take my black paint, make a little line down, come over a little bit, and make another vertical line. I want nice big boards. You can have an artisanal fence. There's nothing wrong with that.
See.
Some boards can be wider, some boards can be narrow, because we're going to make them very rustic, these boards.
See, I heard big boards bring all the birds to the fence.
Did you really just do that joke? Did you really? You know that's going to just throw my concentration. I'm thinking about it the whole show. What are you doing? These people came to learn how to paint, John. Now you're going to get me the giggles going. They're not going to learn how to paint. It's going to be terrible. I think we're going to be okay. Oh, let's take a deep breath. So ready to do this painting today. Now, that's really the most important part for me to sort of get sketched in right now, is this idea of where my sky is and where my fence is. Because before I even put my birds in, I can get both of those objects in fairly well. And I actually like to do that. Now, sometimes you can do your objects all in and paint carefully around it, but I think you're going to enjoy this process where we layer up and then add the birds in. All right. I'm going to take, one of my favorites.
Now, is this a new step?
This is a new step.
We've drawed.
Drawing. I like to draw.
And now we're on the painting part.
This
is the underpainting.
Well, this will be the background. And I'm going to use a big brush. This is an 18 Raphael Artini brush. It's a hog bristle brush. I have a lot of hog bristle brushes, but you could also use a stiff synthetic. That would be okay. I just want something that's going to give me a scruffy. Hear that? Scruffy.
Definitely.
Scruffy.
We can really hear that.
You can really hear it. Isn't that nice? I'm going to take a little bit of my ultramarine and my phthalo green and some white. And I'm going to begin putting in this loose background with a scumbly back and forth stroke. See how we're doing that? Scumbly. Scratchy. I am pressing the brush from the mid-belly to the toe. My brush is not really wet. It's lightly damp. Lightly. Let's add a little more light to that blue, shall we? Come here and add some different little blue spots. This is great because this is just a very loose and scruffy little technique. You can also get a little of your brown into this mix and sort of blend in that background stormy sky effect. So this is the burnt sienna into the phthalo green and ultramarine blue. So we're really doing kind of a tealy aqua with a neutral brown background, and that's going to let our birds really, really show. And you can see that having brown on the canvas in the background is helpful. Now, whenever you use a brush like this, you will have to sometimes rinse out, and then you want to dry it out thoroughly with a towel. If you're having any trouble getting control of the water on your brushes, I made a video about that because I think that messes with beginners all the time. Not enough water, too much water, how much water on their specific brush. And it gives you an idea on even how to test and see how you're doing. So it's a really good video for that. If you're struggling with that at all, we got you covered.
You have to wonder if water benders are better acrylic artists.
No, they're better watercolors.
But you both use water.
Earth benders are better acrylic artists.
Think so? They're more earth.
Mm-hmm.
But see, earth's in, but they use
airbenders are the worst acrylic artists. They need to paint in oil. Wait, if you don't understand what we're talking about, we're referencing a cartoon called Avatar that we watched with our kids.
Yes.
And that is why that's a really weird joke to tell
to
online. But like, I could seriously tell you like what mediums would be best for each of the elemental benders. So That's what kind of art teacher I am.
See, I find myself very aligned with the earthbenders.
Yeah, I like earthbenders.
So I would have to say that probably, like,
Though
I have to go cheer earthbender team.
I'm just coming here. I added a little more brown and green into my mix, and I'm just darkening that hue. And you can see I'm just coming around the edges. Hi, Beth. How are you doing? I don't know how many members of our Midnight Secret Circle Club are coming, but I always enjoy seeing them. I hope you're feeling better soon, Beth. We went to the retreat, but then there was the COVID fallout. That was not super fun.
No.
No, but the retreat was super fun. Just scumbling back and forth. See how I'm coming from this upper right and kind of coming down at an angle towards the lower left? That directionality is really giving me some energy in the sky, isn't it? It's letting us know we're going into autumn. It is letting us know it's a stormy day, but we're not having to specifically paint clouds or skies or trees or bushes or anything. We're implying that these objects are here, but by putting them into bokeh or an out of focus phase, that really just makes it seem like they're there without having to do all the details. And that is a wonderful thing we get to do as an acrylic artist. I think it's earthbenders because it's pigment based.
See, I was going to say that. I think that watercolor would be the best thing for earthbenders because they can control the pigments inside the water.
But the pigment goes where the water is, so that's a waterbender medium.
See, but like
I think
in traditional
you have
earthbending
already
way,
lost.
we should push the pigment.
No, I think that. And then it's pastels. That's earthbenders are pastel artists then, aren't they? Really?
I guess you could say that. Yeah. Sure.
But what is definitely not an acrylic artist is an airbender because their paint dries out too fast.
I would say airbenders, they just have to hold their breath. It's the firebenders you got to watch out about.
If you've never been here before and you're like, what is this? We do try to keep the energy a little bit light and fun. Then can you see how this has got some nice dimensionality to it, some directionality? Right? Isn't that lovely? We're just building that up. We need to get at this a couple of layers. So the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of my phthalo green and burnt sienna together on this brush. And I'm also going to work maybe a little more burnt sienna. I want a deep, deep, deep green. Bring this up here. Curling that in. We want a nice rich sky, don't we? That way our birds pop. I'm going to bring this around the sides. Again, this is more brown in the green. I'm going to come here around this outer side. Now I can always get a little yellow ochre, kind of work that in. And that takes it into a green, but it's not a saturated green. And I'm just back and forth. I'm not pressing my brush into the canvas. I'm lightly going back and forth. And I'm both dry brushing and blending. It's interesting how that works. There's dry brushing and there's blending afoot happening here. I'll go back into my ultramarine blue and I'll get a little bit of my titanium white. And we're just making sure that this sky is beautiful and has lovely color because, well, that's why we paint, is so we can enjoy the lovely colors and discuss what type of bender would do what type of art medium. What do you think that Uncle Ito would do, John?
He would likely be a potter.
Fire Nation.
See,
glass blowing.
They gotta go. They're definitely a glass work.
Like bronze casting, glass blowing.
So I would say like earthbenders definitely much more into sculpture. Firebenders I could totally see going the glass route because absolutely.
I feel like you're starting a fight, but it's okay.
Well, because glass makes you bleed for it. Like you can't work in glass and not bleed.
That's a true story.
Like whether you're doing stained glass
Not
or
to discourage you from working in glass as a medium, but it is a
it's
more challenging art material to work with. I've added more white, and I'm going to continue to add a little bit of just interest here. I just want to make sure that my sky is blended and fascinating. And I can come back with a little bit of my green here. And you can see as we just layer it up, it just gets richer and better.
See, I'm going to argue that that earthbenders can do all of it. So you can just...
Okay, so if you don't know what this is, The Last Airbender, and if you can't tell, John's a fan of the Earthbending Nation.
See, just now you got me on it. But we are painting a background. One of the things that I have enjoyed since we've done some changes here
Just working this brush through so the color is dispersed, and then I'll let you tell them what you enjoyed. I'm just making sure that they know what we're doing.
Well, you can't hear it, but the scruffiness of the brush.
Oh, yeah, I love it.
You can hear it now, but they can now hear it too.
Oh, can they hear it right now?
They can really hear it, yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, the new mic setup allows them to really hear that.
Oh, I like that. It's more comfortable for me.
Oh, good.
I actually like it better.
I still have to do a few more changes, but I think this will...
Just to wear. The thing over my ear gets on my nerves.
Yeah, that's why I'm trying to move away from that.
But you know what doesn't work? The mics at the retreat. I could not make that sound. All right.
Sorry.
So I added a little more white. And what I'm doing is I'm just layering in. I just want a nice background for my sky. And there it is. It's lovely. I've got great coverage. You might see a little of the brown through the paint, but that's why we painted the canvas brown first, is so that it had that richness. Now remember, you've got a lot of fat little birds that are going to be living here. All right? And so you've got room.
You do.
You do. You got some room. All right. Let us get us a new step.
A new step. Okay.
New steps. Oh, all right. I'm going to use a 3/4 inch Catalyst Princeton angle brush. Now, I'm introducing you to this brush. This is a brush that's stiff and scruffy too. It doesn't use any boar bristles, but it is also stiff and scruffy, and it's excellent for doing wood and wood technique. This is going to be easier than you might expect. I actually very much enjoy this technique, and I know I'm going to enjoy this part of the painting personally, but I really want you to. I want you to get your brush wet and take out all the extra water in your paint towel, right? You want to have your handy dandy paint towel. Let's come over here and get a little bit of our burnt sienna and our Mars black together and make a deeper brown. And we're going to just carefully dry brush up and down in a streaky way this brown. Now you can come on your edge where you want to do the boards, and then up here at the top I like to do, I might even kind of come and get my little corner into it, do you see? To give that rough edge.
Pam has a really good question for you.
I'd love to answer it. We're going to be doing this through all the boards. Burnt sienna, Mars black, vertical stroke, going down, light pressure, dry brush.
So why does it seem that canvas boards suck up the paint and moisture quicker than canvases?
Because probably because you're not, so there's different kinds of canvas boards. There's a particle paper board, which is most of what's out there is like a pressed particle or a pressed wood, and it can be very absorby. But there's also mason board that has gesso on it, and it actually doesn't soak in. In fact, the paint sits on it beautifully. I used to paint with the ampersands, if you guys remember, and I really, really like them. So I'm using the angle to make the rough edge of the fence here. And they won't do that to you, but the kind of other boards will. They'll be a little bit extra thirsty. A trick you can do is paint them all, the surface, with a solid color like this twice. And then that'll seal it, and then you'll get a better result out of your techniques. There's a guy that used to do soft gel and modeling paste he would put over it. There's different ways you can finish it, but really it's just about sealing that board. You'll notice as you paint on them longer and longer, their absorption is less annoying and less extreme. Notice this is a very streaky way of doing this, isn't it?
You just
streaky, my friends.
Streaky.
Streaky wood. I'm just trying, I'm not trying to, I'm reserving some room for black, which is why I do the brown and black, because I want to be able to have one shade to go deeper into.
And this is a very beginner-friendly technique, so don't be afraid to jump in and try this because it really does come together all at the end.
And in the beginner acrylic painting course, we like introduce you to these techniques.
Yeah.
Get you going, help you troubleshoot them, help you know where you're, you know, it's the hardest thing about all of this isn't the painting, guys. It's just doing it at home where I'm not there with you.
So one of the things that like to be mindful of is see how her it's kind of muddly where it's darker in some areas and lighter in some other areas and it's not all even. That's okay. And don't worry about trying to make that. It's okay for it just to naturally happen because those weird patterns will turn into wood later. It's you just have to kind of trust that they don't need to look like wood now. They just need to be this sort of broken up pattern.
Well, there you go, Professor John.
Well, no, just like so you don't like.
It's a true story. What he's saying to you.
You know, when you're stressing out over this, and your brushstroke doesn't look like her brushstroke, don't worry. It's okay.
Okay, so and like it, there's a lot of ways to troubleshoot your brushstroke. If it's too smooth, you have too much paint. If it's too even, you overly mix the color. You want your brush to be damp but not wet because you want to be able to do a light dry brush and let it be streaky. You want to be able to have it be streaky. And by the way, as it layers, it just gets better and better. So even if you're having a rough time now, you keep at it and it's going to get there. Now, once I've got that first thing in, I'm going to come back with just black. And I'll go ahead and I've put it on the edge of my brush here. And what's great is that these boards are not completely perfect and they've got lots of weird edges on them. So now I'm going to kind of come through and exaggerate the shadow on the fence. And this is not a problem for the straight line challenge because you don't want a straight line, which is wonderful. So these are the gaps in the fence that you're seeing. And you can have them be, you know, you can have a board be wider at the top and trimmed out. Little bits of this can fall out. So, you know, you're not having to be so perfect that you got to worry about that. Let's rinse that. We don't need to dry anything, but let's call this step 1. Because this is you're getting used to this technique, right?
This is step 1?
Yep.
But wait, I thought we were on step 5.
Let's call this a step.
Do you want to dry it?
No.
No?
No.
We can
Just
wet step?
We're going to wet step.
5.
All right, now I'm going to take a little bit of my yellow ochre and I'm going to mix it into this area that I had with the burnt sienna and the Mars black. Right, I'm getting some different little colors there. And I'm going to come through and just lightly, notice how I'm just touching a little color here and there, but not everywhere. This is just another little layer. Sometimes I'll come up from the bottom, like to make sure that the wood texture is very rough. So that's the yellow ochre mixed with burnt sienna and the Mars black, right? Wood is often got a lot of color in it. It makes it a very enjoyable thing to paint. And you'll notice again, I'm just using rough, streaky brush strokes, right? Just starting to get this on. This is the anchoring of it. Sometimes it'll pick up a little of the paint underneath it. I'll come back over. The big thing is to keep it rough and dry brush. Don't have, like, look how much paint is on my brush. It's not a ton. I'm dry brushing it out. All right, that's looking pretty good. Now, wood often has mold on it. It has grayed areas. So how I'm going to do the grade is I'm going to take a little bit of my ultramarine blue and my burnt sienna and mix them together. And I'm going to get a little bit of white in here. You'll see that's going to make this lovely sort of little gray. And I'm going to just barely touch the brush to the wood. And this is all before we even put in little interesting bits like knots and things. And the grain of the wood. This is just the color and the weathering. Because wood weathers.
Wood weathers. It does.
And a lot of what we're doing when we're painting is really getting into the weathering of the wood.
Would you rather weather the wood?
I always would like to weather the wood.
Would you?
Mm-hmm. Weather the weather. So that's ultramarine blue and a little bit of burnt sienna and titanium white to get that blue-gray that is coming in on the wood. You can see I'm still dry brushing. The wood underneath is wet, and so that's letting the colors sort of blend wet into wood as I go through. Another one that we can do is a little bit of our our yellow ochre and our burnt sienna together. I'll come mix it into this over here. And I'm mixing into the color I have over here because it creates sort of a unification. And this is sort of like, you know when the moss gets on the wood? Yeah, so this is a little bit of the wood growing some moss. It's really been out there. And yeah, we will come through with some very careful wood painting, but this first layer just, it gives us a place to start from. It gives us a wonderful, lovely, lovely place to start from. Okay, now we will dry it.
Gotta get it dry so the moss is not gonna be
Well,
streaked.
yeah, well, we have to come back with another layer and push this wood. It's still in this very bright red, and I've got to get it more into these burnt browns.
Okay.
All right, let's dry it.
Dry it. All right. Man, this has been really good. I'm really enjoying doing this one with you guys. Yeah, it does. It changes. You step away for 3 minutes, Shirley, and you come back, and it's like, wait a minute, that doesn't look like what we were just doing. But it is. It's all those complex layers that come together, and you just let them work their way out. Don't worry about perfecting the wood. This is like one of those things where if you squint your eyes, you kind of look at it from far away. If it looks like a fence, you've won. That's it. Because once the birds are on there, your eyes will be like, I'm not even looking at the fence. The fence is just an accessory to the birds and the flowers. So it really is okay.
I'm going to put out a little more burnt sienna.
Is this a new step, though?
Yes, definitely
Okay.
a new step. I'm going to put it in two places. I'm going to put some burnt sienna here and there, just so I have plenty. I don't want to be having to look for it or worry about it. And I'm going to grab a small D brush. Now, if you don't have a D brush, don't worry. If you don't have a D brush, don't worry. This is the number 8 Raphael Dartini D brush. The brush. This is a hog bristle brush. One side is a filbert, and one side is kind of a domed round, and it allows you to use both this flat side for getting streaky effects, and then you can blend and do lots of angles and things. This brush has a lot of edges. If you don't have this brush, you could use a bright like this, or even a round. It would be okay. I like this brush, but there's comfort in it, but the technique doesn't exist solely in the brush, if that makes sense. Like, I'll tell you if you've got to have a very particular tool. Thank you, Patty. I'll tell you guys if you have to have a very specific tool to get a technique. I will let y'all know when that's going on. Now I'm going to get a lot more dark kind of brown there. I'm really mixing it in, if you can see that. And we're going to start weathering this even further. If I need to get a little more water on my brush, I will. I like to build up layers on wood. And then all of a sudden, and you do these shadows and highlights, and you're like, what? Where did those planks come from? So this technique, you can see my brush is a little bit wetter, and it's really knocking this board back from this one, isn't it? I'm still letting the top of the wood fence be kind of rough, and this brush lends itself to that as well. And I'm making sure that this just bright burnt sienna is kind of pushed back into the brown and the black.
Thank you, Patty, so much for all the help. Really appreciate it.
Really do. So I'm just bringing this down here. And that's just, it's like, almost like a stain. What happens, I think, in wood is people get caught in the pattern of the wood, the texture of the wood. And we are going to do that, but we need to pay a lot of attention to the color and dimensionality of the wood. The patina. The patina is the art word. Patina, my friends. So when you're weathering an object, whether you're rusting it or adding like that kind of copper effect where it gets blue-green, whenever you're doing those things, you're giving it a patina. But we're not giving it a real patina. It's a faux patina. Oh. Right? Because this isn't oxidization. This isn't turning because of weather and time. This is, we're approximating what weather and time did to this wood. So we're going to go from like pretty new wood to some pretty old wood. Isn't that lovely? And now it's much more knocked back, which is just terrific. And another thing that I'm going to get into is I'm going to get into some burnt sienna and ultramarine blue, which again, those give us that gray. It's a lovely little blue gray, isn't it? And I'm going to come down and kind of take a little of this blue gray from the top, coming down, maybe through here. We're darkening it. This is like from the rain that falls. And the wood gets extra wet. So that's what we're trying to start to talk about, is the way the wood might get extra wet. The wet wood.
The wet wood.
You're like, I had no idea there was so much painting in wood. Yeah, you should try rocks sometimes. They're very colorful. And we haven't even painted an adorable fat bird yet.
I know, we're just getting to the birds.
I'm going to come in and sort of darken this inside area, because I definitely want it to be a little more split.
Shirley has the D brush, but it's Textura. Would it do the same?
Yeah, it will. It will. Just run it a little extra dry. It'll do the same thing. I actually like both the Textura and the Ardeny. I have both in there, and they're both pretty good at what they do. All right, let's make sure we get that to the gray. Oh, there we go. I'm going to come on the toe and make short little brush strokes. And then I'm going to come up. This one's sort of like a V. You can kind of see that there. Now we're starting to think about the grain. We got to go against the grain to get the grain.
That's okay. You can go against the green to get the grain.
And come along the edge of that little board there. So we really do paint these, don't we? Much more than you'd think. I think that's what no one ever really sees coming. Besides the Spanish Inquisition. Nobody ever sees the this paint coming. I wonder where that saying originated from. That was from a movie, wasn't it? Kind of just sort of come along there. And even now I'm applying grain because these brush strokes are short and they're starting to make patterns.
Yeah.
You had no idea how cool this was going to be.
It's really cool.
Maybe a little more brown in here and a little more white. And I'm going to come along the top of the little boards here too. I'm just touching. I'm using the flat side of the brush.
Yep.
I'm just touching it. So that's the little top of the board.
Just that little dancing across the top, create some depth to it.
Yeah, it's like, you know, that's the top of the fence. This is where the most sunlight is hitting the wood, and so it's really weathered it, so it's lightened it the most. And that's why we're going to the trouble of doing that. We only have, like, we don't actually, as beautiful as this wood is, and it is involved to paint, there's not that much to it.
Yeah.
There is, and then also there isn't. Now I can pull that down, I can blend. Like contouring your face, my friends, you can blend. Blend, blend, blend. Pulling it down. Giving that fence some dimensionality. Now I want to dry it again. Very, very dry. And come back and we'll put in the details that make the fence pop.
Mm.
All right, but we got to dry it first.
Dry it first. All right. So, while she's drying, whoop, don't bump that. Yes, Monty Python is always welcome in channel. And thank you guys for supporting us. It's really, I'm just going through reading the chat. Yeah, really, really appreciate you guys helping support our channel. It makes a big difference in what we're able to do here and makes it possible. So thank you so much. And yeah, on with the burbs. The little burbs on the fence.
The burbs.
The burbs.
The burbs.
Now this is a new step.
This is a new step. And I have two brushes I really like for this. This is a number 8 Simply Simmons Extra Firm Round, and this is a number 6 Raphael Sepia. If you have the Art Sherpa number 4 round, that will work really well here too. I want the round because it gives me a point. I like this one because it opens up and gives me streaks, and I like this one because it doesn't. So it's always interesting to see how these two play against each other. I'm going to get the big one first, and I'm going to get a little bit wet. And I might come in and grab a little bit of my cad yellow and my cad yellow and my cad red. Very much like that. And I'm going to add some burnt sienna sort of in here. It's pretty vibrant. And come here and making little sort of streaky strokes. Maybe a little more yellow ochre. And come here and make little implied round. See what we're doing? Right there. That's going to be a knot leader. Where that is, I can kind of come down. I want to be very light with this color because it's so vibrant. And then curve around this and down. You can always get right into the burnt sienna too if you feel like it's gotten away from you. So don't feel like you are stuck anywhere. Just, oh, doesn't that just painting the wood fence? Now I have some very funny videos where apparently I didn't realize how funny I was being. Talking about wood and hardwood and paint the wood.
Yep.
But you know, sometimes you just gotta gently stroke your wood, and I don't know any other way to get you there than that. I'm mixing into the black, and that's going to help blend a little bit where maybe it got bright. See how that helps me control? And another little maybe not there that's sort of implied. Who knew that much was going on with wood? There's this thing called a grainer that just goes like that and does this grain
Oh yeah,
for trompe painting.
just go next grain.
It's not the same, like it doesn't have the dimensionality, but sometimes I think about it fondly and wish I had one. Oh, I got a little more yellow than I meant, but it's okay. A little more dimensionality in there than planned on. Let's get a little bit of our gray going too, which is our burnt sienna and our ultramarine blue. And I might gray back some of this yellow.
I was gonna say, yeah, it looks like that has a little weathering to it.
Yeah, I gotta weather a little bit. Some of my wood got a little bright. Get a little green in there. It's good times for sure. Trying to make sure that we, our wood looks old. Wood needs to look old. Little burnt sienna and black. You can see that just, isn't that crazy? Rocks and wood just get better the more you futz with them. I suppose there's a way to overwork it, but I haven't found the limit.
You don't think it's possible to overwork your wood?
I don't think so. I think you just layer until the wood is done. Because we're grown-ups. We act like adults here.
Most of the time.
I'm just lightly streaking. Look at this, just brush over. And I'm just letting the brush do the work. You know, I'm letting the brush do what it's got to do. Now we're going to switch to this brush. And then it's going to be like, whoa, which is the best. But you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to dry it. And here's why I'm going to dry it. And we're going to call a step. I like to rest my hand, steady it on my surface. So that's terrible when you have wet paint because you go and then you have paint all on the side of your hand.
Yes,
so my trick, I could use a bridge, I could use a maul stick, but I'm lazy. So I just dry it and then I do it because the technique doesn't require me to work wet to wet.
So yeah, just make sure you thoroughly dry through here. And, while you're doing this, if you could, you could click the thumbs up button because that's something you can do while you're waiting for the paint to dry. And check out the links in the description below. We have lots of cool stuff down there. That was a fast dry.
Let us try. But what are we trying?
It was a fast dry.
It was a fast dry.
Step 8.
Step 8. Just enough to rest my hand. Now I'm taking that number 6 sepia around and I'm taking some pure black. And I'm going to come here between these two little boards and I'm going to really refine this line. That's the separation between those two boards. I might kind of bring it over a bit. I want a nice thick gap. Come here in the knot. I'm going to add some little lines coming around here. Even up into my top of the board. And short and long grain lines.
That really brings it together.
It does. We're going to add some little stuff up here. And then this one is a really interesting kind of little crack. I like old rustic weathered fences a lot. You will find them a lot. I think, we had a little bit of a thing happening up here, so I definitely want to come back and paint that in. Defining that little crack. And we still have to do the highlights in here
I
too.
know.
So there's some moments. There's lots of little moments we get to create when we paint an old wood fence. Everybody gets excited about the flowers and the birds, and I agree they are exciting. But there is some great joy in painting the old patinas and weathering. Every time you do it, it's a little different.
Yep.
That's okay. It's no big deal because every fence is its own unique, it's in the weather, it has different weather patterns, it's exposed to different exposures, like some of them are northern exposures or southern exposures. It reminds me of one of my favorite shows, Northern Exposure. Who watched it? I loved it. I was so into Northern Exposure.
I was always told it's best not to expose your wood.
Yeah, I think that's good advice for you. I'll tell you what, right now, I watch a lot of Korean rom-coms.
Yeah.
Like a lot. And so I was just catching some Korean news. And apparently, unlike in the rom-coms, which does not depict, aggression or anything to women, but apparently there is a lot right now. And a bunch of ladies have just said, you know what? No, thank you. I'm done. And they have refused to get married or have children or do any of it anymore. So don't expose your wood.
There you go.
You might not get a girlfriend. Is the lesson of that story. Unless you're going to do this kind of wood, and then I highly encourage it. But no, that blew my mind away. They did. They just stopped.
Yeah.
I have long held that is
the
way to go.
Yep. Just nope out.
Nope out. I'm done now. Thank you. There's a whole bunch of names for it too.
Huh.
Like it's a serious thing. Like it's fully happening.
I imagine so.
And, I watch a lot of the TV shows, and I have to tell you, they do not depict aggression to women at all. Like, this is not like the media is causing it. Because, like, the whole romantic scene in a Korean rom-com is just people walking by each other very slowly. Makes my kids crazy. They're like, is it the slow walking TV show, Mom, that you read? I'm like, yeah, it's slow walking TV show. I like to be a little wiggly, I think, on this one. See, my brush sort of dances up and down, and that helps create that sense of grain. I'm getting even a little wilder with the fence this time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Even less tame. This fence has gotten more intense.
Wild and woody.
Wild and woody. Now I'm going to take a little brown and black together. Yeah, make a nice little dark chocolate, but then I'm going to get it with a little white. Let's come along here on the inside of that. Oh, look at that outer edge
that
go.
looks nice, yeah.
A little bit of that on the green there. I like exaggerating that highlight. If I want a little more yellow gold one, I just come over here.
Mm-hmm.
So I can even on the highlights, I can be. Now, see, I feel like I could get a splinter there.
Yeah.
And that's really the goal. You just want to believe when you look at the painting that you could get a splinter.
These little highlights really do it.
Dance it across the top. It's not a long or heavy line, right? Like these lines break. Some of them are heavy, some of them are light. I'm gonna add a little more yellow ochre. A little bit more highlight to the top of the fence. Just come along and highlight right there. Oh, I like that graining. I'm a little more over in the ochre now because I'm enjoying that.
That is very nice how it gets those little highlights. It really makes it the details just come together.
It does. It just pops it all together. And by the time we get the little birds on here, man, it's like all of a sudden it's like, man, this was just a really fun. It's a fun painting to look at, but it's also, more importantly, a fun painting to do.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are fun to look at, but not fun to do. Like that one little village.
Yeah.
That I painted a couple times. It's really fun to look at, but it's hard work to do. This is just a lot of fun to do. I try to bring my highlights along where I have my shadows, and that helps them pop. But it's not everywhere. It's a little strong, and I just blend that with my little finger because you get it too much, you just push it back. Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
Trying to make sure I got nice little fence tops.
It's really nice.
I like painting this. It's just a lot of fun.
Oh, this is the first time Melissa's caught the live with us.
Oh, congratulations. Thank you for being here. I hope you will come back and join us again. It's so nice to have you. Coming along, just tapping my brush up and down. I feel like I could play for hours and hours and hours, and it is
really
tempting,
could.
but I think we're at a place where I think we understand we have a fence.
Those
now.
are good fences.
This is a good fence. We mended some fences. We painted some fences. It's so nice that Melissa gets to be here. Let's try this. Isn't this just lovely?
It really is.
And I love the results that you guys get too. Like, I love seeing your results from these because it's always like so affirming, like, oh, like they really got the techniques or having that down. I'm going to blow my nose and dry my canvas.
Okay.
All right.
So, there we go. Yeah, I really like how the fence turned out. It was it's really nice. This is what I mean. You don't have to worry too much about it in the beginning. It's about getting all these mixture of colors and stuff on there. You just trust that it will come together. It really does. So, yeah, I don't think that I think we're cruising right along on this one. I think that we're going to be surprised at how quickly all the rest of these little pieces come together. Yeah, I was just looking over here, chat. Nice to see everybody there. And yeah, thank you for joining us if you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit the little like, comment, subscribe button. You can ring the little bell, do all the humany things.
If you love free art classes, it might be a good idea because we do that all the time, but only if you love it. For any reason that you want, because it's your time, you're subscribed. I'm not I always feel so weird when like people are like 2 seconds into the video and like, subscribe to my channel. Why? I just met you. Let's get to know each other a little bit. Get to know me. You might like me. And then subscribe.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and go to the next step.
Next step.
I think it's on the...
is putting in fat little birds. All right. So I'm going to start putting in my little birds using my chalk, and then I will get to my paint. If you're using the traceable and you're putting them on now, you're going to want a product called Ceral paper. And hopefully the mods will drop a link to the how to transfer an image onto canvas video. Because while you can do a chalk rubbing or pencil graphite rubbing on the back of a printout for paper, it doesn't work as well for canvas. So that's why we use Ceral paper. That's S-A-R-A-L. And I sell it in my art store if you have any trouble finding it.
Yep.
So I'm going to come here and I want a few inches to the side for a little bird. I'm going to make a little test circle. This is my test circle. right? And then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to make another little test circle. Birds are often circles. So the test is just to make sure that I'm getting my birds big enough, because I might need to be bigger to crowd 4 of them onto my fence. And we do want them crowded, right? We want our little circles to be fluffy and touching. So you'll want them touching each other. I'm showing you how to sketch this in, but if you don't want to do any of this, just use the traceable. It's totally okay. I'm going to come here and add another little sort of like up and over. I really like painting birds.
I know, it's really cute.
They're just one of my favorite subjects. And this is another little circle. And they're so much like, once you got your snowman skill down, you got your bird skill down. And I'm going to put this one. He's just a slightly higher head than the rest. So I'll put him up here. And so that gives me that sort of little arc. What I like about chalk is that I can kind of finger erase.
Yeah.
So that if there's anything I want to change or be different, I don't have to worry about that. Bring a little bit of the little test wing off here. I know that's going to be coming off there. All right, there. Now, he's got a nice forward-facing beak, so not particularly challenging there. So you erase and then you can put back. Now, we are also sort of a forward-facing beak, but we're a little bit inside a little head space. And then we're going to have a nice big poofed chest. And we come here and are almost like right into this little birdles. That little birdles is there.
The birdles.
The little birdles. This is a slightly sleepy birdles. I like it when they're slightly sleepies. A little bit of a... And again, a little bit of a sleep. And then this lovely cutie pie is facing the other way. And I'm going to make a center kind of line down that. So I can bring the beak a little bit forward. Maybe even more forward than that. So it's not quite a 3/4 face because we don't really see the other eye, but the other eye is implied. There's a little bit of a wing coming off here. And if you're like, man, that's really sketchy, you're right. It's super sketchy.
You're just sketching it in.
Sometimes it's good to be sketchy.
Yeah.
Sometimes sketchy isn't bad. All right. The yellow is really showing today. All right. I think I've moved him a little further than his friend.
Yeah.
So what I'm doing is I'm saying he's too far out. And another trick you can do is a damp brush. Haven't done that? You can take a damp brush and also...
Oh, thank you, Ramona.
All right. Oh, thank you so much, Ramona. So see, this allows me to move that little bird closer. Because I want I want a little more touch there.
Yeah.
All right. I have enough sense of where he is. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of paint sketch them in.
Okay.
So we'll call that a different step. The paint sketching in step is a weird step.
The next step.
And I will use, I think I'm going to use an angle brush. This is a 1/2 inch angle brush. And I'm going to start with a little bit of brown and black. And I'm going to begin by sort of loosely sketching in inside the value. And what I'm always doing is just trying to follow the shape line.
Oh, yeah.
Now I may need to erase some chalk lines. I just do that with water. I can come into my brown and blue and gray, as you do. It's very sketchy.
Yeah.
Just be sketchy.
Looks really good.
Now, what's important to me is like under the chin coming in here and then around the side there, having lots and lots of weight. So I'll go back into my blue. I've got my brown on here. We'll make sure that there's a little brown coming back the wing. And I just work this. So this is burnt sienna and ultramarine blue and white. And then over here is burnt sienna and Mars black. And I'll make a little bit of a shape there. That is how loosely painted in he needs to be.
Very loosely.
I haven't even thought about a beak. Actually, I add some features later, just because it's easier. All right. Let's bring the wing back. Now I'll come over to here. I do some brush directionality where you can kind of see the bird shape just start to loosely sketch in there. It's unnerving when you're new to be like loose and sketchy.
Yeah, because you don't have the confidence to know that it'll come together.
You just don't. But it will. It's just crazy how it does. But sometimes it's hard to just believe in yourself in that moment. You know, in that little moment when you're like, I don't know if I am the artist I dream of.
Where did you get the chalk tool there from?
So this Dritz chalk tool I got from Joann's. It's for tailors to adjust clothing. And I like it because this chalk is designed to not stain anything and to wash completely away. So it's perfect for what we do in acrylic.
Yeah.
All right, let's come here. And this one is a little more kind of up and around. I'm going to just get the upper half. And then that brown kind of just doesn't come back that far, right? Because his little wings and all that are just a little more vanished over into this. And if I want it, you know, a little darker down towards the belly, I just go and get the brown in there. Sketched in. They just sketch in super fast.
They do.
And then right here, I know I want the head to come up. Off the side. And again, if you've used the traceable, you're just painting inside the traceable. And I'll come over here. A little gray over here, maybe.
There's just little.
Just adjust his little forehead forward because he's got a very forward forehead, and I want to make sure his forehead is very forward. Not bad.
No.
Okay. Now I'm going to dry it and clean up my loose chalk lines.
Oh, dry and clean up her loose chalk line. So what she means by that is once she dries this up, then she'll be able to use a little wet brush to just remove the extra lines there. Hold on, I need to cough. Excuse me for a minute there. So yeah, just you have to thoroughly dry it, and then the little yellow that you see there will disappear when she uses her her little paintbrush to remove it. It'll just go.
Yeah, I take clean water and I just
just disappears.
Remove all my sketch lines. This is sort of why sometimes I feel like tracing is the traceables are in no way cheating, even beyond the fact that they're just tracing and transferring an image onto canvas is a traditional art technique. It is really old. Yeah. It is not cheating. But beyond that, when you paint, as you're working stuff in, a lot of times the lines you start with don't remain. So you're really just painting it in much more than you know. Not to get in your head and be like, that's what it is, but it really does make a huge difference. Now I've got little tiny angles, and I love to use angles to paint birds in brights. Just because they have such wonderful little planar features, but I like this because it will do my beak.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take my cad red and my cad yellow, and I might get some black involved to darken it. And I'm going to come here and paint in a little beak triangle. It goes back a bit, meets at a point. It's got a little bit of a little diamond. I may also take the time to think about feet, which will be 3 little lines kind of on the fence, just to know where they are. Center line is longer than the 2 supporting little foot lines. Bird feet are tiny.
They are.
So less is more. So right here across this face, I'm trying to make sure we have foreheads.
Oh.
I'm preserving my little grumpy bird foreheads. I come back with a detail brush later. It's just nice to have this in now.
Yeah.
Definitely we need a little grumpy bird forehead right here. The beak determines the placement of the eye. So when we paint it in, what I'm going to show you do is how to paint your eye in relationship to the beak, and then we'll shade our head and body relationship to that. So it kind of keeps us from getting lost.
Yeah.
We're always, as long as your beak and your eyes are relational to each other, a lot of times everything sort of works itself out.
Mm.
Just adding those little crazy beginner little lines. I added some water to my brush to improve the flow of my paint. That's what you saw me do. Now this beak is important because it's interior.
It's an interior beak.
So instead of sticking out the way these do over sky, this is held within the bird. So I have to be able to work from that positioning. Now I'm going to come here and just be like, now there's a lot of feathers and stuff that goes over feet, which is the other reason I tend not to be too concerned about it.
Right.
Anything that I want to change or shave off or make different, I just come back. See how I'm able to just trim that away and not even worry about it. It's pretty terrific. Okay, So let's call that step, but we don't need to draw anything. We just need to know where that is. Once we know where that is, the rest of the bird's going to come together. I'm going to stay on my little quarter angle here. And I might get a little of my yellow ochre involved. I've got my brown and my black then, and a little yellow ochre and a little white. So I'm going to come on the top here. And flicking upward, allowing that brush line. And I don't know if we can get close into it.
Yeah.
Can you see how it's a rough line? Sort of flicking that outward. Right, and then I'm going to be brown and black. I don't even rinse out my brush though, I'm not too worried. Now, at the corner of the beak back, that's where the brown is going to go. So actually my white will move up.
Mm.
I'm going to get a little brown and white sort of happening here. And along the top, we're just making a little bit of a highlight.
Yeah.
And coming off the back where that wing might be. You can even come over to the orange that I made from earlier with some white.
Yep.
And highlight the front right here. Blend it in. I just want to make sure that there's some shape in there, some shapery. Now I've got my gray that I make with my ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. And kind of coming off the beak and back, I'm going to add a little bit of a shadow. And then here also, that's going to kind of imply some wings. And then I start getting my white involved.
Yeah.
The feathers under him are a little bit darker. They're the same hue, they're just a darker value. And that's how we're going to get the very round, fluffy little shape. Paint a lot of birds. If you like painting birds, I got playlists and playlists of birds. Sometimes I like it a little more blue, so I might get a little more blue in here. And then, you know, as I go forward, I can lighten. Just creating a little shape. With these little guys, it's just really about press back. Making sure we have little shapes.
Yeah, little shapes.
Little round shaded balls. It's just crazy how often it's just little round shaded balls.
Yep.
Maybe a little more. And if I ever just take it too far, I just come back with a lighter color.
Mm-hmm.
And look how much more he's just a little fuzzball. We're going to fuzzball the group. This is the next layer. Let's deal with him because he's got quite a lot going on. In this case, I come from the back and bring forward because there's this tremendous little bit of highlight back there to create the roundness of the head. Grabbed into my little orange and white and just making sure this is just that's lovely. And then a little bit shading here. The beak is there, so that's where the eye comes back at, from the corner of that beak. That's how my bird eyes are always in the right place. Even though I do this loose ball sketch, and that's what I teach my students to do, is get that loose ball sketch in and then line up from the beak. All right, and then we'll make sure that we've got a lighter. Again, it's just about capturing the value sets of the bird. A little more blue here. And you want a lighter value at the chest. But this is just that rough in
Just
of the values.
The basic bird.
It's what you're really doing is you're just setting them in and you're taking them in small increments so that you're not overwhelmed by the flock. Don't be overwhelmed by the flock, my friends.
That's okay. Just feather at a time.
Don't fear the value. Adding kind of a dark little shadow there and maybe here. Thinking about it and then coming up. It's super sketchy, isn't it?
Yeah. In a good way.
It really is in a good way. I'm just loosely gathering feathers. And this bird is clearly one of the better fed birds. Clearly. We are getting to the bird seed fastest. Notice again, I'm lining off the beak. So when I come in, I can keep my eye where I need it. When you're trying to find references of birds, right, as you might, to paint, an important thing to know is that sketching them from all these different directions really improves your overall appearance of the flock.
Sure.
You know, working all the different little faces and personalities they have is what you want, is the story you really want to tell when you're painting birds.
Right.
So if you go, oh, wait, I think I get this ball thing. I'm painting a ball. Okay, I'm just painting a ball. Got it. Flying ball. Which is really what they are. They're a flying ball, you know. So this guy has a little bit of a upward thing going. I might have to mist my palette to improve the flow. We're actually not that far from even the end of the painting.
I know. The details come together pretty quick.
They really do. Definitely want to have some shading in this way. Some thoughts about the wings. That hue over there.
Yep.
Little shaded birds. These little birds are visiting each other because they can. Diffins. Coming in the opposite direction sometimes gives you some interesting effects. And then stroking downwards and flicking outward. And back into the black and brown. It can feel overwhelming to paint a grouping. But once you're painting one, you can paint many. Now look at that. All right, let's take a look at that and see how that feels overhead. How do we feel about our little fuzz balls?
They look great.
They're just little fuzz balls. They're starting to visit. They're starting to have a conference.
A conference of birds.
Amy Overt is admitting to not watching SNL since Will Ferrell was on.
Oh, well, that's a
valid thing, man. He was really good.
Yeah. Now we need to step this again, don't we?
We do need to step this again.
Do you need to dry it?
We don't need to dry. At this point, this bird has, these take so long. One of the nice things about this is you don't have to dry.
Yeah.
Each little bird is such an involved deal that you're good no matter where you're at.
Yeah.
You know, in the process. Now I'm going to pull out one of my superpower tools. These, and I have these, you can get these from my store, but you can also get these like online, different places. If you're in Canada, King's Framing and Art. This is the Princeton Filbert Grainer, but what you're looking for is a Filbert Grainer. And what these do is they do feathers and hair and wonderful different things. These are the same size, but you can see one is much loved and one is new. So let's enjoy the new.
Enjoy.
And we're going to use this to get this extra fluffy effect is what we're going to do. So I'm going to get my little white over here. And I may sometimes spray it with water so that I can thin on the palette instead of having to thin in the water.
Right.
And we're going to start just creating the ball.
Be the ball.
Now this brush works much better if the paint is thinned. Ew.
Yeah.
I have some watercolor or something on it.
He ran away with some watercolor on it.
Apparently it did.
That happens.
Yeah, just rinse my hands. Thought it was like the gummy from the packaging, and I'm like, oh, the gummy got on there. But the gummy did not get on there.
It did not.
There's nothing wrong with having a little blue on the brush to show where the shadow is. Mite your brushes, mite your birdies. I'm going to get some brown here for this part of the like the highlight over here.
Uh-huh.
There's nothing wrong with having well-fed birdies. Your birdies are more well-fed than even mine.
That's okay.
That is okay. Well-fed, well-fluffed birdies. Completely acceptable.
I would say conveniently located near feeders.
Conveniently located near our feeders. All my birdies are fat birdies. They are not struggling at all. It's coming through here. Another trick I can do is fluid white acrylic can help this as well.
Mm.
And I'm focusing my highlight over here.
Yeah.
Another little trick can be to get some yellow ochre into the highlight areas. And I'll show you the fluid acrylic trick.
Can you show how the brush worked?
How do you mean?
I don't know. Ramjet says, can you show how the brush worked?
So the brush is a filbert that has been clipped and little areas pieced out so that what happens is when it, I'll show you here with the fluid paint just real quick. It makes little lines. See that? You can make your own by just taking a regular filbert brush and taking little scissors and going snip, 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 snip.
Yeah.
That's why I don't feel bad showing this brush because they're so easy to make. Does it void the warranty of the brush that you use? Yes. Do you care? I hope not. I don't. I just do it anyways. I've voided many warranties in my days.
Yeah.
But see, that just gives those little, that's what gives those lines instead of looking, it's easy to think it's done with pencil, but it's not. And because we started with a dark enough color, we have room to highlight. I can come into the cheek up here and just playing with the volume, making sure that my little ball here is fluffy and fit.
Yep.
Fluffy and fit. A little brown, a little blue. I can even just sort of touch the shadow in. And again, one of the tricks is to mist your surface. Those misters should be like just a few cents where you can repurpose little spray bottles. Just make sure you don't have cleaning chemical in them.
Right. Yeah. Just rinse them. Rinse them. Good. 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 Good.
Yeah. Just adding little shadows. That's a lot of fun. Let's hit another belly. Shall we?
Yes.
Shall we belly up another belly? Belly, belly, belly. Come here, belly, belly, belly. Making sure I've got a nice little shading here. Definitely want to keep my little shading here. I'm not sorry for the work I've already put in, you know.
Yeah.
That was definitely worth doing. But I want to come in and make sure that I'm shading and doing the belly, belly, belly. It can even be a little shorter on this little part of the ball. If you go short in, it makes little patterns like that. This is a great brush if you like painting wildlife. If you are invested emotionally into painting wildlife, get a filbert grainer in your life. Make a filbert grainer. I've made big grainers. I've made small grainers. You can take a Simply Simmons like this filbert, and you can come in with scissors and trim it up and make a big giant grainer.
Huh.
The negative of it is it voids your warranty on your brush. If you can live with that negative, you are okay. I'm going to grab a little bit of black here and work it on my brush because I'm going to want to sort of show maybe the wing here with little black touches. You can take a cheap grainer, and I mean a cheap Royal and Langnickel filbert, and trim it with tiny, like you know those miniature little sewing scissors?
Yeah.
Yeah. You can absolutely do that. Or I have them at my store, but again, you know, you've got a filbert that maybe you're not loving the edge on anymore. Repurpose it. Give it a new life. All of these little specialty brushes that I might have, or you might see people having, was once created by an artist who was trying to get a technique, and they just made their own brush. That is a true story. And then what happens is those artists get famous or known for their technique, and then the brush companies realize that they've made custom little brushes for themselves, and then they make brushes that are like the brushes that the artist made. Yeah. That's how it happens. So you're not doing anything weird. Oh, I really like that belly right there. And then I just come forward. This is such a great study in value, how light or dark something is. Right? Because you're getting to paint this, but you're, you know, working your values. So like, so good to work on your shading and all of that. And you can see why I had my birds be a little bit smaller, because by the time you floof them out completely, they get bigger and bigger and bigger. Yeah. There's no telling where it will end. We can even get a little more brown in there sometimes, see? That's nice. So much more colorful than you'd think.
Now, can you get the same effect with a normal filbert or any other alternatives?
No, you have to customize your filbert. But just
you have to kind of
yeah, it's the you can do a dry brush, but if you want these little hairlines, you really got to take a brush and you just go snip, 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 snip. You know, and generally you can, I mean, at the point where you're doing it like a couple $1 Royal and Langnickel brush that's trimmed in, I'm just saying, like, it's not far off from performance of this. So, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The business end of the brush, you won't have like a lack of performance. I have made many, and when I don't feel like making them, I purchase them. But you can make them. Combs, grainers, rakes, you can make. I think I've demoed making them, but again, it's just trimming. It's just taking scissors and trimming into a filbert, any filbert. You know, you just trim it in yourself. You can totally do that. You really can. If you ever thought it was a good idea to trim your own bangs, you're already braver than what it takes to trim up a brush. If just once in your life you just got there and you just thought, I can do it, yep, you're already braver than needed to trim up your own brush. But if it's really nerve-wracking, this is the Velvet Touch from Princeton, is a really beautiful brush. It's a joy to paint with. It's got a real kind of a little buttery finish, and I like it quite a lot. Little short strokes right there. And just curving it back and blending it in. Yeah. It's just worth doing. Buy one, make one, totally worth it. I'm like, you guys know I'm always like, you know, hey, do whatever, do whatever, do whatever. So if ever I'm like, no, you want to do this, you want blending medium, or you want to make your own grainer or get a grainer, it's super worth it. I'll kind of explain it to you. So I'm going to do this with some color that you can see. I'll do green. And then I'll show a regular filbert. What's the difference? See? A regular filbert, this is an untrimmed filbert.
Yeah.
Not too off, though.
Not too bad. Yeah.
So see, it's just taking it a little further in. Does that make sense, guys? This isn't bad either, is it? So this is an Isabe Isacryl. It's just a firm filament, because your filbert already kind of has some of this going on, right? This is just the exaggeration of that. I bet that made everyone feel better. Did that make everyone feel better? What did you guys think of that?
Yeah, I think that was very useful.
Yeah, a fan brush is another good brush. A fan brush does a very good. Does a very, very good. You want a tiny one. Like for something like this, you'd want a tiny brush, but it would be just completely doable. I'm going to come here with a little brown and white. Kind of work out maybe some of the wing. Like doing that.
Yeah.
This is over in my black and brown, and there's some ultramarine blue mixture over here. So, again, most specialty brushes are brushes created by artists. I'm going to take this over to my orange that I mixed earlier. Almost all specialty brushes were once originally created by artists. I'm lighter there when I bring those little lines down so that I don't lose what I already have.
Right.
And I'm going to just come under here by the beak with a little bit of black and brown and just make sure that I'm shading. Kind of like the shading of where the eye is going to go. And then blending, blending, blending. You can totally blend. We're just getting further along, and then we'll have like little details at the end. So like hopefully,
yeah.
Michael Art says, I always cut my hair. It is crazy hair to use my sewing scissors, and I get to see, but I get to get back to work. A very colorful day and happy painting with my friends. Love you all. I'm so glad you're okay. And then Crystal Blake says, big love. Soul Chamber Therapy says, video suggestion, painting supplies made from stuff around the house. That is a good idea. Thank you. I like that. Actually, I'm going to come back here with a little black and brown. See, I'm using the directionality too.
Yeah.
And then blending up into those highlights. Right? And then I just take a little white over here. And then I'll come back and blend some little highlights back. Touch the outside edge. Kind of halo it in. A little black and brown again.
Yep.
We're just shading and blending. Nature does that.
Yep.
Nature says, "Oh, let's hide it. Let's hide it. We should hide it." Sorry for my stuffies. I might need to blow my nose.
That's okay.
Okay.
You take care of that, and then we'll give you a little mute while you take care of it. Get ready for the birds. Are you ready?
All right. All right. I'm in here. I'm making short little brush strokes.
Oh, yeah, later on, Amy wanted to know if you could bring back the paper and zoom in on the strokes that showed the brush strokes. So maybe between the next bird or at the next step break, we'll show them.
Yeah, that'd be fine. Fine.
Oh, let me get over there on that where you're going to be.
All right, I'll show you again. So these brush strokes are short brush strokes, like this, where I'm trying to make little short feathers, and then long brush strokes. All right, so like on the bird belly and things, you know, we're making longer brush strokes. Sometimes it's dry. You got to get a little bit thinner to get it to do its thing. But that's what the brush does. See, you guys are good. It just feels like you're not good, but you're totally good. It's actually pretty chill once you get into the vibe of it. I'm going to add a little yellow ochre to my mix over here. Just shading that little head out. And then because I want them to be tied sort of together, I can bring a little bit of that color here.
See, now since you added the little feather touch up there on the top, so now for me, all of these little birds talk like they're from the musical Grease.
Go Grease Lightning.
They got all their little hair slicked back.
I'm going to add a little bit of I come here and I'm going to halo a little bit around the edge. That's like touching up and down, right? That's just to create a little backlighting, to say that we have a little backlighting.
You know, they probably all do have little accents because they break out in song all the time.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, these birds are actually, if you watch them out, like just talking to each other, they're like rude little birds. They have a lot. They have a big, complex social life. There's a lot going on. There are birds that are clearly in charge, and birds that are like the peacemakers. It's just wild. I might sit outside and look at things and then think, I'm going to paint that. I took a little mix of black and brown, and I'm doing short brush strokes out. Oh, Soul Chamber Therapy is talking about Paint Puck. That is a cool company, cool tool. Oh, yeah. And then Asti says we're funny. I think we're funny. I agree with that. Come up here into the brown, black, and white. Kind of blending up. I got to give shadows, right, where my little eyes are going to go, so that they're the little beads, the little seed beads.
The shadows.
The shadows. The shadow nose. Maybe not Alec Baldwin's greatest role. Let's continue just brushing those forward. Look at those go. Little birds. You know where the wings are. I might do slightly shorter strokes. And I think I'm going to get some yellow ochre over here and a little white. I want to kind of mix those in together. Sometimes I wipe off my grainer if I feel like I've got too much paint on it. And I will bring this back behind this bird and then hide the little wingies as needed. Bringing a little brown through there. The more I paint them, the more they just come to life.
Yeah.
You know, and then when we come in and we do little details on their beaks and their feet, it's just, what? Where did that bird come from? And you'll be like, the back fence. That's where he came from, the back fence. His name is Harvey, and he's my friend. I don't talk to birds on the back fence at all. It's never happened. Okay. We're going to round this out. I used a mix of blue and white and burnt sienna, but biased more blue so that there's a bit of a cool shadow to it. I'm going to make sure that those little areas that are in shadow look deep and dark. And I'm not too worried about the feet because I got to put them back quite a lot. You know, so there's just very little that you can do about that. Sometimes you just got to put the feet back. I'm going to add a little brown into this grouping. I like the sound of the brush.
Yeah.
Again, these are a brush you can make or buy.
Mm-hmm.
And I find them to be equally good. I just don't modify as many brushes on air anymore because it seems to give the manufacturers anxiety.
What are you doing?
They're like, make sure you tell people that voids the warranty. I'm like, I think we all know.
It does.
It does. I don't know how many of you've used the warranty on your brush, but that's part of what you get with a good brush company is a warranty. So I want these darker, cooler colors down here so that when I come and add highlights or brighter values, that, you know, we really, really see it.
Really, really?
Really, really. This brush also makes fur a lot less aggravating. Bushes, flowers. It just does so many techniques. I have a 1-minute video on this brush. Why I like it. I wish, like, if I could go back to my younger artist self, I would like absolutely give myself one of these and be like, be less frustrated. I have for you, I've come from the future with a message of a brush to make your life easier. Just, I don't know how I would receive that if that actually happened. I don't know if I would have been like, great, thank you, future me, or if I would have been just screaming. I mean, I'm sure I would have taken the brush. I'm not crazy. I might have been like, hand me that brush, and then I ran away. That's probably what I would have done. But I'm sure John can even think of paintings that I like drug myself through that this would have been a really helpful. I'm making a little shadow color with my burnt sienna and my ultramarine blue. And I'm going to just tap down here and kind of just make sure I've got some little shadows. You want to make sure you have some little shadows. And I'll bring some of these little darker colors into the pin feathers back here. Maybe a few here. You know, burb. Sometimes I have to rinse out. Oh, I like that right there. That's very floofy.
Yes.
Love it when they're super floofy. Super floofy.
Super floofy.
So a lot of people were like, how are we going to get that texture? How are we going to get that technique? They weren't really sure. And I hope that this is like, oh, wow, like what a cool thing.
Uh-huh.
I did not know about this cool thing. I'm taking a little yellow ochre and white, and I'm just making sure that there's some little bit of this gold color back here. Because, like, super important when you paint wildlife to give it variance and texture and color. And add a few little dark spots. These little feathers, as you do.
As you do.
T Rose Lover is working on their watercolor.
Yep.
Is there a reference photo? No.
Yep.
This is from my imagination, so it is the image that you see here is the reference.
Yes. As
So,
what you see is what you get.
For that, if you want a photograph, you need to get the little birds like from online, but you're Yeah, I just realized that you asked me for something and I answered the wrong question. Have you ever done that? I just realized that happened. I will take a picture of this when we're done and I will post it up.
Well, yes. Reference will be here.
Yeah.
But we don't have like the.
Oh, I just realized I don't think I put it up in the event is what it was.
We'll get it there.
We will get it there. I'm realizing that now.
We shall get there together.
Oh, I really like that little belly right there very much.
Oh, yeah.
So belly, belly, belly. Belly, 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 belly. Sometimes it's nice to come in and sort of touch a little. You can also exaggerate some things by hitting a little white highlight to create a little halo. And also help them define their birdie shapes.
Birdie shapes.
Got to get them birdie shapes.
Yes.
And then onward and outward we go to more belly, belly. Now we're going to really, oops, I kind of overfloofed that. That's okay.
Did you?
Yeah.
It overfloofed?
I mean, I don't know you can really overfloof, but I floofed past where I meant to floof, but I decided I like it, so I'm leaving it floofy. Sometimes that will happen. I'll be like, I like it. It's going to stay that floofy. I think that's happening here. I'm just using this sort of lighter value. And then remember, as we go forward, we get into our shadow value. And I'm blending that in. I do like using the golden fluid acrylic instead of just thinning my white, because then I'm not losing pigmentation. Now, as I come here on the back side of this cutie patootie, we're going to add another little light. We're going to add some light. I'm grabbing yellow ochre. And so that's sort of like a warmer highlight that we can, oh, I like that. And a little bit of that here, kind of shading that out, rounding that out, as you do.
Yep.
Or as we're doing today.
As you're doing.
And then back into my burnt sienna and my ultramarine blue. I like to kind of bring it back and let it like floof little feather lines along the little cheeks. Don't you like little floofy little feather lines along the cheeks?
You know, floofed up.
I think I gotta move over here and kind of blend some little floofy lines there, because that was little, it got a little away from me there, I think. There we go. Still a shadow, but just not so. Not so. Sometimes as I'm working, I'll be like, oh, I gotta go back and adjust that. So you can always adjust. You're not ever stuck. I'm gonna go blue, 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 blue. Just kind of make sure that I've got a nice little shading at the neck that I can work up from. Getting a lighter value and blending in. Bring a little blue back there. Kind of blendy, 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 blendy. These little fluke balls are coming in better than I would expect, yeah?
Yeah.
Kitty Williams says, hello from Port Lucia, Florida. Birds are one of my favorite subjects to paint. Great techniques to fluff them up. Thanks for this live class. Oh, Kitty, if you love birds, this is the velvet. I do not work. No one in Princeton even speaks to me, just so you know where my relationship is here. I do have an art store, but these are available all over the place, and you can make your own. I love this sucker. I love it. If I was a bird, like painting birds all the time, I would just have like little grips of these around with my filberts and my angles, and I would just be like at it.
Yeah.
All right, let's get some brown and black again. And I'm going to come here and make sure that we've got a nice little shadow, kind of in the shading where the eye is going to be. And a little bit of kind of like that furrowed brow. I like them to have a little furrowed brow. Like John says, like, they all sound like they are from, what was the group that was, boy, I can't remember what they called themselves for the Grease.
Oh, yeah.
What they were, I don't know, they had some name. Grease was really big when I was a kid, like really big. And I love Grease, but I don't know, like I didn't fall into it.
Yeah, me either.
The way that everybody else fell into it. So I don't remember what they were called, but it was Danny Zuko. What Danny Zuko and the guys were called.
Yep.
Yeah.
Those.
That's what we imagine these birds talk like.
Maybe the Thunderbirds?
Maybe, yeah. Adding a little bit more gold than I probably need to, but.
Be so fitting.
These are the Thunderbirds.
These are the Thunderbirds.
All right. What exactly? These are some type of chickadee. I don't remember. I think there's some type of, they're like little chickadee or finchy thing.
Yeah.
All right. Bring in a little highlight up here, like you do. I'm going to add a little bit up here, like you do. Little glow.
Yeah.
Little glow glow. There they go. It's the flippers.
Yeah.
Flippers. Fluffy. Oh, man. He's like, I feel like I'm too fluffy. I feel like you're taking it too far. He's talking to me right now. He's not sure. And I'm like, I feel like we're close, man. And he's like, I don't know.
Right.
Sometimes they talk to me on the canvas. I'm going to be honest. Sometimes my canvas talks back to me. Oh, that's nice. Kind of pulling him in a little bit. Grab a little black here. Making little spots there. And then what I do is I come on this edge and I kind of flick it back, and that gives me that nice little pin feather little effect. A little hard to get. And then I'm going to give you more of a brow here, sir. You'll need it later. He's like, I don't know that you're going where I want you to go. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure I am. A little more brown there. I feel like I want to come around with a little more blending on this little white feathering. I feel like that's a lot of floofs.
Oh.
We're going to dry all of it, and we're going to start working some details out.
All right.
Woohoo! The details. That's where the bird all comes together.
All right, so just a little bit more, and the details in there. Yeah, and these are all going to just come right together, I think. Thoroughly. What are Thunderbirds? Thunderbirds, they were in a movie back a long time ago. There was a group of kids called the Thunderbirds, the T-Birds in their group, and that's.
Oh yeah, there's everybody knew it.
Yeah.
Everybody knew it. Now I'm switching to a detail
No,
brush.
new step here.
New step, and I'm going to go to the Princeton Select liner. It gives me a nice point. And I'm going to grab a little bit of my Cad Red over to my Cad Yellow, and I'm going to do my beaks and my feet and my eyes. And any other little details that need doing. I'm going to come to the top of this beak. Kind of give that a little like half highlight there, just as a place to start. A little half highlights. That is Cad Yellow and Cad Red to a yellow orange, right? That's where we're going to begin. The feet are always just a little bit more challenging than I would like. I like to start getting that kind of worked out there. A little bit of a highlight. Then I'm going to take a little bit of brown and black together, and I'm going to mix it into my beak color. There we go. I'm going to bring a little shadow inside the little feet. So underneath the beak, shaping that out. We're exaggerating at this stage. The trick is just not to get your feet too thick. Rinse out. I'm going to take a little white over here. Get kind of this highlight of my beak color. And then a little bit into the orange and brown. And so it's a bit of a lighter area on the beak, but it's still darker than the top, and it gives it some dimensionality. I'm using the #1 Princeton liner. Maybe a little bit there. I'm going to add a little bit of just a couple places, a little highlight on where the little feet are. A dot and a pull. See how I'm doing that? It's a dot and a pull. So it's a dot and a pull. Not solid lines, right? Sometimes I don't do solid lines because they won't appear as delicate as like one might need. Maybe less on that foot. This is where the frustration is, trust me. You're going to be okay. But it is where the aggravation is. Maybe a little more yellow. Come here and add a little bit, touching the lower beak. It's easy to not spend the time on those details that you need to spend because they're frustrating details. But if you can get in there and spend it, I've taken just pure black. And just make sure that my little beaks have a little bit of a shadow, just to give you some contrast. And much like we just did a little bit of the white, I don't want to do too much of this either on the little feet. Just a bit. It's also like if anything got overly thick, it's a good time to like thin it out. Again, I find for me, less can be more, and I'm keeping this focused towards the tips. It's a very light line. Now I'm going to take my black. I'm going to come back from my beak. And I'm going to come right here. Paint a small little eye. There's a couple stages to these eyes, even though they are seed bead eyes, to get them to look the way that you're going to want them to look. Another little seed bead eye there. Might kind of indicate there's a hint of one there. And then I'm going to come over here and bring this little seed bead eye in. So he's a little more turned there than his friends. Now this is one where I feel like the fluid paint is my friend. I'm going to make my blue-gray color with my brown and ultramarine blue. And I'm going to use my fluid acrylic. I'm going to get it as thin as I can, oh my gosh, as I can. on my brush. There it is. Here we go. This little gray line around the eye. It is going to be thicker than I want, but I have this trick where I come back and I trim my eye. This one, the line kind of comes forward and joins in to give us that little perspective. And I'll just hint, oh, such a hint. Once that's in, all right, and I can never just get it thin enough. So what I do is I come back with my black and I thin it by painting the inside black a little bit. And see how that leaves it much thinner. It gives you that thin, delicate little gray lidding. This one I actually got almost. All right, but I can come around the outside as well. And then once I have that, I am going to take a little bit of my blue and white. And add some little reflections to these little eyes. This one I'll put to the back. And then I'm going to take a little white. And as delicately as I can, I'm going to add just a couple little highlights to the beaks. If they're too much, I just paint them out, okay? Or thin it back out. I just want that little hint of a highlight. See that there? Just do want the hint. So it's, if I can get it thin enough, great. If I can't, I paint it back thin the way I did with the black line. All right, let's have a look at these little fellows and decide if we feel like they're fluffy enough.
They really are fluffy.
They are fluffy.
Super fluffy.
They're super fluffy. Whew.
That's a stretch, though. Man,
it's been a moment.
It's been one.
It's been a moment. All right. Now, I've got some more detailing and stuff on them I want to do. I'm almost totally there, but I'm not totally there. So let's give ourselves a new step, and I'm going to grab my, wish I had a smaller D brush. I'm going to grab a small brush. I would use my filbert, but my filbert's not tiny enough, and I don't know that do I have a smaller D? I want a small detail brush. Let's see. Okay, it's a 0. So I'm just wanting a small brush. And I'm going to put my glasses back on so I can really see what I'm doing. And I'm going to just go through. Let's get some brown and yellow ochre together. And I'm going to make some light dry brushing just to make sure that my shaping is good. And it's okay that I lose some of those little lines. Maybe a little more burnt sienna for this one. And that will help those little eyes pop some too. Just a little bit right here. And then I'm going to go ahead and get a little white on my brush. Maybe rinse out. Just a nice light color. Just make sure that you're happy with your highlights. You want your cheeks and those little areas to greatly pop. See how that does? We are exaggerating a few things and blending a few things, and also by breaking up even some of our brushes and things. I'm exaggerating, having some white there. This is just to exaggerate some of the lighting. I can dry brush over anything that I want to soften. This is, again, the number 0D brush, but any like brush that you can get a good scumble off of will get you here. I've got a little bit of my blue-gray color in it. Just making sure that my little guy has highlights. On cheeks and things. And it's amazing how like a little dry brushing will kind of come in and turn everything on its little ear there. Get it going. And the little black and brown. A little black and brown. Right? I'm just shaping that area around the eye. A little bit so that they seem hippity. Hippity.
Hippity.
Hippity. We want them to seem hippity. All right. So I feel pretty good about our little birds, and now we've got some little flowers we're going to paint in. And I know I had my filbert out earlier because I was showing everybody the difference. Don't know where I put that little sucker. It's so weird. I do lose at least 2 brushes. Oh, there it is. It's in the thing. A show. The reason I like filberts is I like filberts to paint flowers. This is a filbert. It's not the grainer. It does open sometimes on the brush stroke, but filberts make a very nice flower. And the flower is going to be a little bit of ultramarine and quinacridone magenta. And some white. And we'll start with a kind of cool, darker, more purple color, and then we'll build up from there. I've got my color mixed out. I've got my Isabet Isacryl number 4 filbert. Let's come over here, and I like to hold the brush on its edge. It just helps me make this particular shape flower fairly well. And I'm going to put the flowers in before the vines. Let's pull that one down here and here. That one got away from me a little bit, so I'll widen that one out. Sometimes they get away from you a little bit, but the good news is that nature's kind of a hot mess, so you don't really got to worry. Now we're going to add a lot of highlights to these. So it's nice to start with this darker color, which is, again, the quinacridone and a little bit of ultramarine blue. Goodness gracious. There we go. Done too many petals on that one, but I don't care. Let's make sure that we do a little 2 teardrops so that there's some here. Put one there. Flowers are a great way to hide feet you don't like.
Yep.
If there's just any here, we're like,
Yeah.
I love this whole painting, but for this
Kathleen's like,
foot,
those flowers really pop.
they do. They're going to super pop. And we haven't even highlighted them yet. All right, now we're going to put that aside. And I'm going to tuck some brushes over here. And I feel like there it is. Ha ha ha! My round. All right. Now, interestingly enough, I'm going to start this, put out a little more fluid. This will be the brown and white and black. So let's go here and I'm going to make a very dark color. And we will wander a little vine over here. It's going to show up quite dark on there until we add the highlights. They're hard to see. Maybe bring a little vine out that way. One can come over here and over there. And again, actually I feel like this one needs a little extra vining. And then this one will kind of curl up, maybe kind of go upwards a little bit. But again, it's going to be tough to see until we highlight it. Now, I've got these first bits in, but I want them to dry a little more, so I'm going to grab my white into my black brown. And we'll do the next layer of highlighting on the vining. So this is the white, black, and brown. And you really just want to, this is an old end of summer vine, right? And as it comes up here, it can kind of have little sticks that go off of it, which is really lovely. I'm going to get a little of my white and my pink. And in this case, I might add a smidge of yellow to it, just a smidge. Make some very light colors. Come in and I might have to come back with my filbert for this. I think I will. Come back with my filbert and then detail out. the brush is damp, it's loosely mixed with white and pink. That isn't getting me where I want either. There we go. White and pink. Just going over our petals. Maybe a little more pink. All right, you're doing great. You're doing great. Okay, that looks a little crazy right now, but we're going to be okay. I'm going to come back with my #1 detail brush. And I'm going to grab my quinacridone in my purple, and that's going to, quinacridone and ultramarine is going to make a deep purple. We're going to come in the center of these and tap up and down. Maybe there, a little tapping up and down. Tap up and down. Tapping up and down. All right, let's come underneath that petal and kind of give that a shadow. All right, this one got a little bit away from me, but we're going to get it back. Tapping up and down. This again, quinacridone and ultramarine. Maybe a little bit here. And a little bit here. Now I'm going to come through and very carefully bring some dimensionality of shadow through some of the petals that I've sort of loosely sketched out. I just want to pull these in more. I'm not outlining, I'm just creating shading so I know where I'm going with it. Now I'm going to get a little of my pink and I'm going to just go right into my white. Put a little more of our fluid acrylic out. Just giving them some dimensionality. So sometimes it'll be more pink and white, and sometimes it'll be more white. And closer to the centers, I want it to be darker. More in the pink. Closer in the centers, more in the pink. I'm just doing little lines, just making sure that there is a sense of pink in the center of these. Okay. Now let's do some pops of pink even here on these little petals, maybe towards the back. Put it back. This is the number one Princeton Select liner again. I'll rinse it out. Okay, now I'm going to grab some white and pink together. Add some little dots there of that lighter color, the white and the pink. Pulling some different highlights. See, now they come together. They get crazy for a minute, and then they're like, oh yeah, flowers. That's what I was doing. It's almost like the flowers remembered they were being flowers. Sometimes I go a little lighter with the white. Just pulling them together. When they come together, they really start to come together. Then we add some of these little highlights to the tops of these little guys. And we just enjoy it, right? We take our time and we highlight that center and we you can always come back if I feel like it got away. Add the shadow again. So don't ever have to worry about that. A little more highlight in the center. Little dots in the center. I add a little extra pink there, like maybe there's a little extra bud. Yeah. Maybe a little extra bud here. And a little more white. And then I'm going to take a little of my yellow ochre and kind of get my white loaded up on my brush. Give these little vines not an outline, but a touch of highlight. And the reason it's not an outline, my friends, is because not all the light would be hitting it equally. So you want to try to make sure that you're reflecting that. I see a little flower that somehow skipped my attention. And that'll happen as you're painting long sessions. Kind of tap in the center there. Come through and highlight up some of this. You guys have it. Just come through and little highlights to that petal. All right, let's see how we are.
I think it's pretty fantastic.
We got there.
That is pretty good. I think it's just, you gotta sign it though.
I do gotta sign it. And do we have any to show?
Oh, you know, I was gonna say that I have to cut this one pretty close because I've got to run here to the school.
Oh, okay.
So, and we only had a couple pictures. I think that even, let me go back and double check. I don't think that we had a bunch.
I forgot to put it in the last.
It's okay. We only had, I think.
All right. Well, John's got to run to the school,
okay.
So we knew we were kind of under the gun today, and I'm a little under the weather, so.
Wow. Let's just take a look at this though. That turned out great.
Thank you.
Let's see if you can get in here. We can do it next to it. Look at that.
Yay!
That turned out so good.
I think so. Thank you so much, guys, for coming today. I really appreciate you guys hanging in. For everyone that does this, I'm so excited to see your birds. I hope you are enjoying your painting experience. I hope you aren't like, oh, I got to have this filbert to do this painting. I hope you're like, oh, I got that filbert I could make to do this painting. I hope that's the space that you're in. Maybe I'll have John, we'll buy an inexpensive filbert. We'll make a short of making a grainer out of a filbert.
Oh,
if
yeah,
y'all
I think
would
that'd
like.
be fun. That'd be a fun thing.
I could show you how to do that in a short because it's pretty simple, but maybe if you saw me do it, you would be braver about doing it yourself.
Yeah.
And again, I have the filbert grainer for sale in my art store, but I don't want to put a lot of pressure on you because you really can make them. And once you start making brushes, you'll never stop. It's a problem actually.
It's a fun
It's
hobby.
very hard for me not to paint with handmade brushes on the show all the time because those are like my go-to tools. And so one of the things that I had to learn to get out of the habit of was customizing all my tools for me.
Yeah.
To teach online because I was like, well, no one's going to be cutting up all their brushes, but you can.
What's great about it is then you see all the brushes on sale, and there's that brush that's over in the corner that was like all frayed and you weren't using, and you're like, oh, I can give it a brush cut.
Yeah, exactly. So there is this sort of wonderfulness to that. And no, your birds, they can be fatter, they can be big boys, they can be skinny boys, as one of my favorite sculptors says, whatever, chunky or thin boy. Just whatever you love. You know, it's really you. Your birds are your birds. These two are the center birds, and I love how this one is like telling everybody something. It's like a little bird meeting. Yeah. I think we all need a little bird meeting.
I think this turned out so good, so good.
And then those chickadees took a long time. They did today. My goodness.
Believe in yourself. You can do this. This is really a 2 hoot. It's not that hard. It just takes
I don't know.
time.
We might have to elevate it to a 3 because it took longer than I calculated.
It's just a long one. It's not technically difficult. It's just a time intensive.
Yeah, that's what happened there. So I want you
yeah.
guys to be good to yourselves and be good to each other. And I'll see you at an easel really